Excellent. Okay. All right. So good evening. Welcome. Glad you all could be here. I'm Meredith Dooney. I'm the program coordinator for the Lawrence Library, and I am very pleased to welcome our guests tonight. We have Yash and Lindsay, who are here from Uma Flowers. Yash Patel is the Chief Education Officer, and Lindsay is the bud tender. And they're going to talk to us tonight and answer any questions that we have, and just provide us with some insight on what it's all about. I loved when I read in Uma Flowers' brochure that their mission is to provide safe, clean, and pure cannabis products that improve the health and wellness of the communities they serve. So I think that's awesome. I actually went in there today just to see what the place looked like, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I will just ask everyone to remain muted. And if you have questions throughout the program, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat, and we'll do our best to get to the questions towards the end. And I think that's about it. I'll let you go ahead and take it away, Yash.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming in and joining this presentation by the team of Uma Flowers today. So today's topic is just to talk in general about what is cannabis, and just to give you guys a bit more education about just in broad term of cannabis. As Meredith said, my name is Yash Patel. I'm a physician. I'm a practicing cardiologist. I practice at Providence, Rhode Island. I'm a professor of medicine there. I'm also the chief educational officer for the company. And we have, I'm Lindsay with us today. She's our awesome bartender. She knows more than me in terms of what cannabis is, and she will try her best to give you guys some good education in next 30 to 40 minutes or so. So with that, we will get started. All right. Okay. Disclosures. We do not have any form of disclosure from any sponsoring companies, except the fact that we are from Uma Flowers. Talking about the history of cannabis, there are different names that are associated with the term cannabis. Some people call it the weed or pot, marijuana, ganja, doha. For many years ago, people started to smoke this plant called as Cannabis sativa, and the goal was more for spiritual, medicinal, and recreational purposes. They say that cannabis did come from the part of the Asia back in the day, and then it traveled to the rest of the world. The history of cannabis cultivation in US dates back to early colonists, when people use this product or plant mainly for non-THC purposes. And we will go into a bit more detail about THC, but they use this plant mostly for textile as well as ropes. Some of the common reasons why people consume cannabis, and again, we will talk about in detail about these things, but just to give you a high level on this, people started to use cannabis either to enhance their recreational activities. Some people do use for ailments or diseases. For the recreational activities, that could be, while they are listening to music, watching movies, creative hobbies like arts, sleeping, eating, exercise, as well as during sexual activities. Medicinal use for cannabis does involve treatment for pain, for sleeping disorders, anxiety, stress, PTSD, fatigue, depressions, nausea, vomiting, especially for people who are on chemo therapy, and they have no form of appetite. So let's take a deep dive into what is the cannabinoids, right? So cannabinoids are the type of the compounds that are found in Cannabis sativa plant. And in like any plant that it grows, you can find as many as more than 100 cannabinoids in there. The fact is our own body, human body, as well as mammal's body, do produce its own cannabinoids, which are called as endocannabinoids. Endo means by our own, and the cannabinoids is the actual product. What this product does is, it helps to maintain homeostasis. When you have some form of injury or illnesses, this cannabinoids does help at the cellular level to gain back its function, and it like overall helps to keep our tissues healthy. So as I said, this helps us to maintain homeostasis by seeing that what is going on with our own body, whether it could be in terms of neural responses to nerves, to the immune system, and just in general help with our metabolism. So this is just a diagrammatic presentation of what endocannabinoid system is. So there are two type of cannabinoids, right? So one is a phytocannabinoids, which means that it is being like phyto means it is produced by sunlight in the plant, which is either a THC or a CBD. And another is endocannabinoid, which is produced by our own body, which includes 2-AGs or something called anandamide. So this is just a pictorial diagram of what is happening at our nerves, right? So there are pre-synaptic neurons, and this cannabinoids either by the plant or from our own body that binds to these receptors and helps to facilitate this whole process. So, if you want to know more about endocannabinoid system, you have to know that, which specific endocannabinoid or a cannabinoid in a general would act to. So there are two main type of receptors in our body. One is a CB1 and other is CB2. So CB1 is primarily focused in the brain as well as the spinal cord, whereas CB2, it is primarily found in the peripheral organs, especially those associated with the immune system, like your lymph nodes or spleens. So what are the most commonly found cannabinoids in the plant, right? So the most common, as what we are all known about, is THC. THC is also called as a tetrahydrocannabinol. It is mostly known to the general public because of its psychoactive properties associated with it. What it does is, as you can see in this diagram, so this is a THC. So the THC binds directly to the CB1 receptors. And because CB1 receptors are primarily in the brain as well as spinal cord, that has this effect of the psychoactive properties. So as I said, because it acts directly to the nerves as well as the brain cells, it is helpful for effects such as euphoria, helpful for the pain, as well as for antiemetic properties. Another one is called the THCA, which is an acidic form of THCA, called as the tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. As I said, it's a precursor of THC. Once you consume THC, the alkaline substance from our gastric or the stomach converts them to a THC, and that is mainly being used for anti-inflammatory properties. The other most common cannabinoid, as you guys have heard about, is called as CBD. CBD is also called as like cannabidiol. So what CBD does is, unlike THC, it is not directly binding to the CB1 receptor. So that's why it does not have that psychoactive properties associated with it. It is mostly being used for anti-inflammation, antimicrobial, antispasmodic, like in patients with the IBS, and for the antioxidant properties. As I say that, because it is not directly binding to the CB1, unlike THC, it has less of that psychoactive properties associated with it. And similar to that of THCA, CBD has the acidic form of it called as CBDA. And again, once you consume it, once the alkaline properties in the body binds to it, it will be converted to the CBD, which is mostly been used for anti-inflammation as well as for seizure. If you buy any kind of product from a dispensary, you will see that there are few other cannabinoids besides THC and CBD, THCA and CBDA, which include CBG, CBC, or CBN. But more or less, these are mostly to do with the anti-inflammatory properties. But for a general public, they are much more aware about THC and CBD. So, as I said, right, what is the main difference between the CBD versus THC? So, what I always tell to the consumers is, CBD and THC can offer complementary and the synergistic effects, right? So, if you just take THC, it has much more potent effects on your body because it is directly affecting the cells through the CB1 receptors. CBD helps for the production of the body's natural endocannabinoids through the CB2 receptors. CBD, when it is consumed with the THC, can help to avoid the side effects of too much of the psychoactive properties associated with the THC. So say, for example, in your body, if you have 10 of CB1 receptors, if you consume THC and CBD together, you can think, right, if you just do like THC, then all the THC will bind to the CB1. But if you consume mix like 2-to-1, so then now what's going to happen is you have 7 molecules of the THC that is going to bind with the CB1, and the 3 of them will be binding to the CBD. So if you consume THC and CBD together, it might be of some benefit to certain consumers to avoid too much of the psychoactive properties. So yeah, as I said, the CBD rich strains and the extracts that are available for consumers who just wants to enjoy to have a well-being component to the cannabis without much of the psychoactive properties. All right, I guess Lindsay will take from here.
Hi guys, I'm Lindsay. I'm the bud tender at Uma Flowers. There's a variety of elements that make strains unique, such as their cannabinoid profile, the concentration of cannabinoids like the THC and the CBD together. It's key to knowing both of their characteristics and how they affect you when you use them. Strains with high THC and little to no CBD are more potent, while strains with a 2-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC can be more relaxing and produces less of an intense or intoxicating high. So if you're not looking to get super high, it's nice to get a lower level of THC and have the higher level of CBD, and you can still get the medicinal properties without feeling maybe uncomfortable or something you're not ready for. Terpenes are something that you might be hearing a lot about nowadays. They're the molecules in the cannabis plant that produce flavor and aroma, but they also have other properties that help support cannabinoids and other cannabis molecules in producing certain effects. I think like, the linalool. Linalool helps phenomenally with anxiety. I love that one. The cannabis plant produces over 200 terpenes, so that's why cannabis always looks kind of different and smells kind of different. And individual strains will have varying terpene profiles and concentrations. You get those different environmental variables by just cultivating them differently. Everybody grows things differently. Everybody uses different things, different soil, just how you grow it, how you take care of it. That can affect the terpene profile and the cannabinoid profile in the plant. Let's see. There are three like kind of major types of cannabis strains. A lot of people have probably heard of sativa or indica. There is a hybrid of the two as well. You get a little bit of both effects with the hybrids, essentially. Sometimes you have a 50-50, and sometimes it can be like a 70-30 kind of thing, so it would be more dominant towards one or the other. Sativa generally produces a more like uplifting, heady, high, and like energizing effects, helps you focus a little bit better. Indica is more relaxing, sedating, full-bodied, the mellow, stony effects that a lot of people associate with just kind of relaxing on the couch. And then the hybrids are the combination of the two. All right, so it's kind of hard to choose what strains you're going to pick. There's quite a variety. If you look at any menu, especially ours, there's quite a bit to choose from. Some of them all sound a little bit new and exciting, so they all have some fun names to them. A strain's terpene profile can produce subtle or intense flavors and aromas. So that can be a determining factor for you. Some people just want a nice smelling or nice flavor when they smoke or consume. And then the effect that you're looking for. So everybody reacts differently to cannabis. That's a big one. So everybody has a different way that they react to it. And nobody's going to feel exactly the same with it. Trying strains with different cannabinoid and terpene profiles that are likely to produce your desired effect is nice. You can kind of play around with maybe seeing which one is right for you, because there are multiple strains that can kind of do the same thing for you. If you want to experience more intoxicating effects, it would make sense to go with something a little higher in THC content. If you're looking for a more relaxing experience, you might try a strain, like I said before, the linalool, a terpene reported to have stress relieving properties. Those can also be reported on the packaging when you're seeing them, and you can kind of see what things affect you. Depending on the concentration of the cannabis, particularly THC, some strains are more potent than others, and you do kind of have to watch out for that as well. All right, so importance in lab testing. Everything that you see in a dispensary is lab tested. It can't be there if it's not. Any cannabis you buy in a legal dispensary is required to go through rigorous lab testing to determine both the cannabinoid and the terpene profile of each particular strain. It also tests to make sure that there's no harmful amounts of pesticides, fungicides, or other chemicals that you use to grow plants and cannabis. That could possibly lead to more health issues for you. So if you're concerned about those, they test for them. And if it's too high, it's not going to be in here. All right. So there's a couple of different ways that you can consume cannabis nowadays. The most known is going to be smoking it or inhaling it. It's probably one of the more common forms of consuming cannabis. That's when you see like the flower, you can like pack it in a bowl or a joint or something, and you light it with a lighter and you smoke it. yeah, it's definitely one of the more potent forms, or the most popular forms, not the potent, sorry. So you'll probably see a lot of people with joints or blunts or water pipes, bongs, what have you. The next thing is body care. A lot of people don't know that you can get topicals, so like lotions and salves and stuff like that, because it is a great anti-inflammatory. They put it in lotions and stuff so you can get it directly to those places. So it's really nice that you can kind of pinpoint that without having the need to be high. Then orally, there's tinctures and drinks nowadays that you can just put under your tongue sublingually, and it absorbs right into your saliva glands. They work a little bit faster than edibles because you don't have to digest them. They just go right into your body. And then edibles typically are made with butters and oils, cooked into a number of foods, drinks, what have you. Brownies, a lot of people are familiar with pot brownies. That's been around for a while. And those take the longest to take effect. So those can take anywhere from like, I say around an hour to maybe 2 hours to kick in, depending on the individual, what you've consumed that day, and even longer for some people. It's just all about body chemistry and what you're doing. All right, so flower, it's the most smokable part of the plant. It's cultivated, harvested, dried, and cured before making its way to the dispensary. You can consume it in a pipe, in a bowl, use it to take bong rips, roll it into a blunt or joint. The pros of it, typically you can find a wide variety of strains. Nowadays, there's quite a few. The more options you have, the more likely it is you'll find a strain that you enjoy. Most affordable cannabis products, so it's a great option for consumers on a budget, which is true because you can get, a nice small joint or like a gram of flower. It's not something you'll have to invest heavily into to try. And then it's got a high bioavailability, which just means that the higher percentage of cannabinoids make it into your system than in some other methods. It passes directly into your bloodstream through the lungs, so that's why you feel it almost immediately when you're smoking. The cons can be, depending on the potency of the strain, the potency can be either short-lived. On average, effects can last anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. So you kind of have to know what you're doing for 1 to 3 hours and know if you're going to be capable of either just relaxing or going about your business. All right, concentrates. It is exactly what it says it is. It is a concentrated form of the cannabis plant. My favorite way to think of it is they literally just squish the nug, and whatever is squeezing out of there is all the essence of a concentrate. They actually do press cannabis nowadays to make rosin. And so they literally just press it between 2 plates and the juice comes out of it, and that's concentrates. There's many different ways to get concentrates. That's just one of my favorite ways of thinking of it. They literally just squish some nugs and juice comes out, and that's the concentrate. There's many different ways to get that though. It's made when you remove excess plant material and other impurities from the cannabis plant, leaving only the most desired plant compounds, namely the cannabinoids and the terpenes. You can sprinkle, say like a form of concentrate is keef, or bubble hash, or dabs, if you've ever heard of that term. You can sprinkle keef on a bowl or in a joint to increase the bowl's potency. You can put it some wax in a vaporizer or a tabletop vaporizer and vape it, which is a little bit better for the lungs nowadays. And you can also use a dab rig. So that's more of like the water pipe and the bong situation, and you go at it that way. You torch up a little bucket and you dab it. That's why they call it that. It's just a dab of concentrates. You only need a dab. You need a very small amount because it's so concentrated. Pros, because the concentrates are so potent, you will need less in order to feel the effects. So you don't want to go too crazy with the concentrates. They have a rapid onset, almost very immediately. As soon as you inhale it, you'll feel the effects of it. And then cons, and again, due to being so potent, they create an extremely strong effect. So it's not something I generally recommend to first-time users, or unless you're in severe pain or having incredible issues. Edibles. Cannabis infused food or drinks that can be made with either cannabis flower or cannabis concentrates. Um, you can make baked goods, chocolate bars, cooking oils, and butters, gummies, mints, and beverages. There's literally so much nowadays. They can make essentially whatever you want as long as they can get it into a butter or oil. um, the pros are it's a great way to consume cannabis without inhaling anything, because some people, of course, don't want to smoke. Like, it's totally fine and acceptable reason to take edibles. It makes it an ideal choice for, again, consumers with an aversion to smoking or vaping. Manufactured with a precise dose makes it easier to control your experience and avoid overconsumption. In Massachusetts, any one piece, like one gummy, it cannot be over 5 milligrams. Legally, one gummy cannot be over 5 milligrams. So that's kind of a nice thing to know starting off. And then the cons are it is absorbed through the digestive tract. So like while you digest, just like food, it takes at least 20 minutes to 3 hours to kick in because of how it moves through your body. It has to make it to your digestive system before it can take effect. Then that can also lead to overconsumption and a too intense, long-lasting high. A lot of people have probably heard that story where you're like, I don't feel anything, and you go to eat some more, and then later you're feeling too much. So it's always nice to go low and slow with edibles. There's no harm in like not feeling too much. Tinctures are kind of new for a lot of people. They're an herbal solution created by steeping the plant, in this case the cannabis, in alcohol. You can also use things like vegetable glycerin if you're opposed to alcohol as well. They're often administered sublingually under the tongue, and they can be mixed into foods, in drinks like smoothies, salad dressings, and soups, which is nice just for regular meals if you don't want to have a flavorless planty substance. So you can just kind of add some flavor to it. Some people prefer the tinctures because, unlike the edibles, such as cookies and brownies, they have a lot fewer calories. So for somebody who's struggling with maybe going to sleep at night or something like that, you don't want to eat a whole chocolate bar before you go to bed sometimes, it's a little bit much. So having the tincture is really nice. The pros is they have precise dosing, which makes it easier to control. And because most of the little pipettes you squeeze in have the exact dosing on the dropper, which makes it easier to know how much you're using. And they always tell you how much is in the dropper, milligram wise. So they have precise dosing, which makes it easier for you to control your experience. And if you don't like the taste, like I said, you can mix it into a tincture or food, or a beverage or food, excuse me. And then the cons can have both a rapid and delayed onset, which is kind of weird to talk about, but it makes for an extended high, which not every consumer wants. If you take, so as you take it, it really only takes about like 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. And then over time, you take it longer, your body will acclimate to the tincture better, and it'll have a better desired effect for you. So the longer that you take it, the longer that the tincture, or the better the tincture will work for you. So that's why it's kind of like you can have both the rapid and the delayed onset. It has a tendency to be a little bit more expensive because it is a concentrated liquid. So there's a lot more cannabinoids in that liquid. And some people have an aversion to the taste because it is kind of planty, and it does have a bit of that alcohol flavor if they use it. So can be off-putting to some. The topicals, again, not a lot of people might know of these nowadays, but you can put them in lotions, salves. There's like patches that you can like put on your back nowadays as well, like the transdermals. Yeah. The topicals provide a localized effect to the specific area because you can just rub it on the area without the high, because it's not going to be the same thing as if you smoked a joint, because you're just putting it directly on your skin. It can't go all the way through into your bloodstream. CBD is absorbed better by the skin, so CBD topicals can deliver a more full-bodied effect, and that's why you typically see a higher volume of THC and CBD topicals. They're normally together. And then many infused CBD topicals don't have any THC in them, because typically when somebody's looking for that CBD, they don't want to get high, and they can't through their skin with the THC anyway, so it doesn't really work. And if you're looking for an intoxicating experience, you're not going to get it from the topicals. It's more of a medicinally beneficial form, for sure. All right. What is safe consumption of cannabis and things to consider? This is something I talk to with people a lot. Your body chemistry, everybody is different. I'm going to react differently than the way somebody else reacts. I may have been consuming for longer than somebody else, so I'm not going to have the same reactions as a lot of people for things. So that's what I always try to tell people, especially if they're new and they may have smoked in the past, but and if it's been a few years, it's very different. Dispensary weed is incredibly potent to things back in the day. So you can't just like come in thinking that you're gonna be able to handle some of the joints that they pass out nowadays. They're pretty potent. So you just want to be wary of that. The type of strain as well is something you want to consider. You can, there's many ways you can research strains nowadays. You can look it up online. You can ask me, I'll tell you a lot about it. I generally know a lot about the strains and what they can do for you medically and like physically, like the effects that you get from it. So never be afraid to ask the bud tender or the person there about what the effects may be. How much you consume is incredibly important. You don't want to take too much. You don't want to take too little and have no effect, you know. So you just kind of want to consider that, maybe the method of consumption, smoking a joint, a bong, a dab. Like I said, if you're brand new to smoking, I'm not going to make you do a dab. That is a bit much for a lot of people. It's very harsh on the lungs. It's very potent. It's like, it's concentrated. Time and setting, you know, are you having a good day? You having a bad day? Are you outside? You're at a concert, you're out to dinner. You just kind of want to be wary of these things. Like you don't want to go out to a family dinner 2 hours after you might have taken a few edibles. If you don't plan on that, you know, and they jump it on you, it might not be the smartest idea if you don't think it's going to be, you can't handle the edibles and go to a family dinner. So you just kind of want to be thinking of what you're going to be doing that day as well. And then the intention, are you consuming to watch a movie, do art, or go for a run? Do you want to get a little high or very high? So that goes back to what I said before. You kind of just want to make sure your day is okay before you go do this for the first time. Or if you know what you're about, just make sure that you're okay while you're doing it.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to talk it about in next few slides about how to incorporate cannabis into your day-to-day lifestyle. You know, as Lindsay said, there are factors such as environment, right set of a mindset, what type of a diet that you are consuming, methods of consumption, and the type and the amounts will play a significant role in your cannabis experiences. Some of the research has been shown that cannabis is good to uplift your mental health. People who consume the proper amount of cannabis can, you know, can be helpful or beneficial for them to, you know, shy away from, you know, fearful expressions and just embrace the cheerful expressions in their day-to-day lives. Cannabis can help with your metabolism. There's a study done in the Journal of the American Journal of Medicine, which was a cross-sectional study in about 5,000 adult males. And what they found was cannabis use was associated with lower levels of fasting insulin, insulin resistance, as well as a smaller waist circumference. So that gives you an idea that cannabis can be helpful for your overall metabolism of the body. Most of the people who are obese, as well as they have diabetes, they have these problems of fasting insulin as well as insulin resistance. So cannabis can be helpful in those individuals. Cannabis is also very helpful in managing stresses. People do consume cannabis to relax as well as control their stressful situations. Strains like a higher concentration of the CBD can especially be helpful for controlling their stresses in their lives. As we heard from Lindsay, that higher concentration of the THC can help for analgesic effect, as well as can help the people who have trouble falling asleep. Cannabis has been shown to promote the creativity as well as meditation. What it does is the cannabis or a cannabinoid would release a dopamine from the brain, and the dopamine can help to relax the brain cells. And in pursuit of which, people can increase their creativity by thinking outside the box. So again, as Lindsay said, you want to make sure that what your body is capable of, make sure that you are consuming a right dose concentration. You don't want to overdo it if you just want to enjoy doing this. Cannabinoid and the medicinal use, it's been known for quite a while. This is a good study that I kind of like from JAMA in 2015, which is a Journal of American Medical Association. This is a meta-analysis, means that they combine all the prior studies as well as the literature from the point that anybody published about cannabis till 2015. And what they came up with that is cannabis has been shown to have a good evidence that can be used for chronic pain, spasticity, nausea, as well as the vomiting for people who are on chemotherapy for any kind of cancer, weight gain, as well as for sleeping disorders. March is a Women's Month. So this is a study that I found that was published a couple of months ago in the Journal of Women's Health. There are gender differences between men and women in terms of cannabis use. What this study did was they basically did a cross-sectional survey of people who were consuming medicinal cannabis in a city. And what they found was women were more likely to report decreased use of prescription drugs after they were on a medical cannabis. What was interesting was they did not get much higher levels of support from physicians who were prescribing there for a medical cannabis. So yeah, there is gender gap that is out there. So a woman just wants to be more cognizant about, the consumption of cannabis as such is less overall in a woman than men. And one of the goals of Uma Flowers is, just to educate more and more people out there, especially women and those people who are who have disparity in terms of just knowing a bit more about this product and what this product can be used for different type of ailments as well as diseases. Potential side effects of cannabis, yes, you want to be cognizant of this. Some people have said that they get kind of dry mouth, dizziness, as well as the paranoia, especially when you are consuming a lot. So always be mindful of your own body and how much you want to consume. While people have used cannabis to fight against anxiety, it can, of course, can cause more anxiety, especially if you are consuming more than what you are used to. Cannabis can slow down your reaction time. So always, please make sure that you're not driving a vehicle or a heavy objects under the influence of cannabis. As I said, the responsible dosing can help you to avoid these unpleasant experiences, especially with higher concentration of the THC. And always speak to your doctor or your primary care physician about your medical history and other prescription drugs that you are on before taking cannabis. There are, as a practicing a physician, there are certain drugs out there which, there could have some interactions with the type of medicines that what you are or what you could be on for your other ailments. So always make sure that you research on them. Most of the drugs or most of the prescription medicines, they don't have much of the interactions with cannabis, especially if you are just trying to use cannabis like topically, because as Lindsay said, topical products generally don't go to your bloodstream, so it's not going to have much of interactions with prescription medicines. But if you are to use, like tinctures or concentrates, which can go directly to your bloodstream, then you might want to be aware of those things, and you want to ask your primary care physicians about it. Why does cannabis make you hungry? This is a common question that people ask. So under normal circumstances, right? So how do you feel hungry, right? It all depends on the homeostasis of your blood sugar concentration in your plasma, like a hormonal balance in your blood, emptiness of your stomach as well as intestine, and signals from your hypothalamus in the brain. How does the cannabis stimulate the appetite, especially for people who are anorexic, especially on chemotherapeutic drugs for cancer, through the production of a hormone called as ghrelin. And this hormone directly acts on the hypothalamic part of the brain, which would stimulate the appetite centers of the brain, and in turn of that would stimulate the hunger. In addition to that, cannabinoid can help with the taste as well as smell. So that's why the combination has been helpful for those who are anorexic. So with that, thank you so much to all of you who joined and listened to our small talk. We would be happy to take any questions.
Well, I guess I'll go first. I haven't seen any questions come up yet, but I have a question. So Lindsay, you were talking about when you were talking about the terpenes. I'm just curious about this. Like the flavors that you were talking about, are those determined solely by the terpene profile, or are flavors ever added to any products? Like, because you know how sometimes you get like, there's blueberry. Where did that come from?
There are cannabis derivative terpenes, and then there's like natural terpenes that are in everything. Like pinene is a very common terpene. It's in pine trees. Like that's the smell of pine that you get. There's another one, myrcene. It's got a little bit of like, it's got that skunk, the funkiness of like, if you ever like think of weed, it's normally that skunky, funky smell. That's the myrcene. So typically, the different combinations of those things will have a different effect. But for things like the vape pens and stuff like that, they can add other flavorings to them. But a lot of the times, those flavors are cannabis derived because
Mhm.
you can find terpenes naturally in cannabis as well. So they
Okay, yeah, that
taste
makes sense.
incredibly like blueberry, but it's extracted from a cannabis plant that has those very powerful terpenes.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
Right.
Um, Louise asks, any info you might have on cannabis for someone with ALS?
Yeah, that one's a good one, honestly. I can look real quick in here for us if you'd like, or we might want to pass that one off to Yash as well.
Yeah, so ALS, which is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, is a horrible disease to begin with, and I'm sorry for all those people who are been suffering with such diseases. There's no real research done on any type of cannabis product that can be helpful in such patients. Most of these patients has very bad spasticity, uh, and they have difficulty swallowing as well, because that's what it affects your part of the brain and the spinal cord. So if you are trying to look for help with spasticity, I'd say that the combination of THC and a CBD, more like 2 to 1, might be helpful to try to alleviate those spasticity. Lindsay, do you have any?
That is Harlequin or Harley Quinn nowadays. That strain particularly is incredibly high in CBD, which is great for the controlling the spasms in the body. So something that has one of those high ratios. There's another one we have. Strawberry Lotus is another one. Sour Tsunami is another one. Just they're very high in CBD. There's also another concentrate called RSO. It's a Rick Simpson oil, and that they use a lot for people who are suffering severely with spasms and things like that. It almost stops it like in its tracks. It's incredible to see. There's lots of tests on it, but RSO is incredibly potent. So again, that's one of those things I don't offer to everybody or recommend to everybody, just because it's very potent. But RSO would be another great thing for that. It's edible. It's a topical. It's pretty cool.
RSO. Okay.
Yeah.
And then someone else, LA, is asking what product or what type of product would be best for a sleep aid?
That one, a lot of things that you'll see that are particularly helpful for sleep, you'll generally see in addition of CBN. CBN and THC together are a great combination for helping you sleep. So there's, I think, a couple products. They've been around for quite a while, not just in Massachusetts. They, I think, originated in California, but the Chiba Chews have been around for quite some time. They're a chocolate taffy, and they have a couple of different like varieties, but they have one called the Sleepy Time, and it has a ratio of CBN, THC, and a little bit of melatonin in CBD as well. So those are just things that kind of help your body into a relaxing mode for sleep. And then there's also some strains as well for that. Like chocolate OG is very, very not. It's not like chocolate. It's just a strain of cannabis called chocolate OG that is incredible for sleep. It's very, very sedating.
I'm going to go ahead and put your website here in the chat. It's umaflowers.co, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there it is. but easy. umaflowers.co. Oh, I'm sorry. It's right there on the screen in front of me. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I do have one more. So to come into,
I think, sorry, Jean B is asking a question here. What would help the electrical pain of trigeminal neuralgia? Lindsay.
oh, you're still me. Yeah, you're muted. How did you get muted?
All right.
Okay.
Let's see. I just want to see how it's spelled because I heard what you said, but I don't know if I'm super familiar. Try.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it. I missed that one.
Electrical pain. That's a good question. Let me look it up and I'll get right back to you.
Yeah, I mean, from a medical standpoint, what I can tell is, trigeminal neuralgia, it's the pain that like happens to your face, it's a very shooting type of pain. So if it's an analgesic effect and if it's very like topical, I don't want you to put CBD products on your face because I don't think that is a good solution long term. But again, I think 2-to-1 concentration of tincture or concentrate might be of helpful to you.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that exact ailment, but yeah, definitely you don't really want to be putting that stuff on your face all the time.
Yeah.
You can use it for acne, but some of the stuff they don't make for your face. But the tinctures is probably the best way to go because over a long period of time, they affect your body more and more.
Maeve asks, solvent versus solventless concentrates, pros or cons?
All right. So they use different solvents essentially to get that juice I was talking about earlier of the concentrate out of the plant. The most natural way without the solvents, a lot of people like because they don't have CO2, butane, and things like that in possibly still in the concentrates. So a lot of people like rosins and bubble hashes because they don't use any added chemicals to get those concentrates. They can also be a little more potent sometimes because they don't have that degradation of THC and CBD due to those chemicals. But solvents make it incredibly easy and fast for you to extract the concentrates. As long as they're purged correctly, a lot of solvent concentrates can be healthy for you, but there's always going to be that they used butane or CO2 to extract the oil from the cannabis. So there's some people don't, which is totally fine. They don't want to use any sort of solvent in their life and stuff like that. So they'll go the route of rosin and bubble hashes where they don't use any solvents. The solvents can also degrade the cannabis as well. So it's over time, they degrade more than the solventless.
How many bud tenders do you guys have over there at Uma Flowers? What are the odds of us catching you there next time we come in?
I'm here fairly frequently. I'm pretty full-time here. There are 3 of us full-time here, 4 of us as well. There's kind of a halfer as well. It's going to be me and a couple other guys here, and we're all just as knowledgeable. So like, if you don't get me, don't feel bad. they're just as knowledgeable as I am to help you out. And they have
that's a very unique concept that what we have at Uma Flowers in Pepperell, because a lot of places you go and it's a very it's a very bank-like transaction, right? So you go into the door, all you do is pick up some product from a menu, you go to the cashier and you exit out. But here, as you said in the opening statement, the goal of the Uma Flowers is to promote the health and wellness of the community. And one of the ways that what we thought, besides doing all this educational seminars, is to have people on the floor, like the Apple Store, right? So when the customer or a consumer comes in, he or she should have a very educational experience from Lindsay or some of our bartenders who are there all the time. Whatever hours that we are open, a bartender or two are always there to answer your questions or concerns. And that's the goal, what we had. So.
That's great. That's so good to hear. I know we only have just a couple minutes left. Really quick, do you have to be a Massachusetts resident to shop at your store?
Nope.
No, okay.
You just have to have a legal ID over 21. That's
Okay.
the only.
And there's a couple more quick questions. We'll see if we can get to them, because we really do have to wrap up. But one person is asking, can you eat resin?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Not a great flavor. Not
Okay.
too many terpenes in there.
And Tina is asking, can you share any effects on fertility? Or does it have any effects on fertility?
I'm personally unaware of any tests about the fertility on people after the consumption of cannabis. I'm sure soon, now that cannabis is becoming more mainstream and normal, there will be a lot more tests like that. But it's actually pretty rare to find extensive tests about that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I mean, there is some preliminary data showing that cannabis consumption can decrease your fertility rate, but again, it's not been proven. As again with cannabis, there is still a lot of research that needs to be done. So again, I don't have a perfect answer for you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. This has been great. This has been so incredibly informative, and we really appreciate your time tonight. And I will have this recording ready on the library's YouTube channel. So that'll just be in the next day or two. And yeah, thank you so much. We really enjoyed hearing from both you, Lindsay, and you, Yash. And hopefully we'll be able to do it again someday.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
certainly. Thank you,
All
guys.
right, excellent. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully we'll all stop into Uma Flowers sometime soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.
You too.